So, welcome everyone to the third of the series of these TILT webinars. TILT stands for Technology and Language Teaching. We've had two extra time webinars because the idea is that they're supposed to be every Thursday. We came up with the idea of TILT Thursday, but in fact, because we felt there was a real need for a bit more content sooner than once a week, we asked the lovely Michael Williams yesterday and now the lovely Georgina Dorr today to share their experiences of remote teaching. Now, Georgina, I did meet a couple of years ago, I believe, down in the southwest of England at a Bristol event. She was a member of the ALL Southwest Committee, but she's now teaching in Hanoi, which is very cool. And as Georgina said earlier before we started recording, it's now 9 o'clock in the evening there, as opposed to 2 o'clock, just after 2 o'clock here in the UK. So we're absolutely delighted that Georgina has offered to share her practical experiences of remote teaching in the last 8 weeks from her school. And I think, before we start, that's right as well, I need to say as well that the TILT webinar series is organised by the Association for Language Learning, for whom we are very grateful, and it's also it's also promoted by Linguascope as well, which is amazing. If you go onto the ALL London webpage for webinars, you'll find not only the webinars that we've had in the last couple of days, but also the previous webinars that the lovely Helen Myers has been promoting through Adobe Connect. But we're using Zoom.us for today, as we will be for all the other TILT webinars, which is fantastic, and I think probably one of the most popular video conferencing tools at the moment for remote teaching. And yep, that's everything I want to say so far. We will be having another TILT Thursday this Thursday, but I will announce who it's going to be a bit nearer the time because we're still finalising that as we speak. So if there are any other questions, I think we're ready to start. Over to you, Georgina, and thanks ever so much for agreeing to do this. And we're all looking forward to asking lots of questions and learning lots about remote teaching in the languages classroom. Over to you, Georgina.
Okay, thank you, Joe. So as Joe said, I'm Georgina Dorr, and this year I moved to Hanoi in Vietnam to teach MFL. I'd been teaching in the southwest of England for a couple of years before that, so it's been a bit of a shock, and teaching online for so many weeks wasn't quite in the plan, but we have adapted to it, and since the end of January we've been off, and so we've had lots of time to get our heads around how to plan online teaching, how to kind of do it, because 8 weeks ago I had no idea, and I'm definitely not the expert now, but I've got a few top tips that I'd like to share with you guys. So I've split it into these 4 main points, as you can see on the screen. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is organisation, technology, tasks, and also I'm going to touch on well-being as well. So everything will come back to these 4 strands. If you have any questions as well, feel free to just pop them in the chat and we can answer them as you go.
Can I ask everyone to turn their videos off if that's okay, just because I don't want it to use up bandwidth. I can do that for you now as well, but can you not have your videos on during the session? Thank you. Sorry, Georgina, over to you.
Okay, so to start with, organisation. So normally I'm quite an organised person, but I found being at home, I wasn't quite as on it as I would be in class due to lots of distractions. But and also we weren't told that we were having days off, so my planner's actually still at school, so I haven't got my planner. So I decided to make a timetable, and to start with, that was just a personal timetable, but then I decided to share it with my students. And we've actually done this as a school-wide initiative where we've got a code that you can see on the screen. So we've got LL is when we do a live lesson. And we started off doing live lessons every lesson, and it wasn't productive. You've got students who log on halfway through, or students who just log on and then go off and do what they want to do and then come back and are not actually in there despite their name being there. So we decided to just cut it down to 1 live lesson where the main input is, and then throughout the week they've got independent activity, which is IA, and also support available SA, which is when I've got a Google Hangout open. If they want to pop on, ask me a question, if they want to just chat in French for a little bit, we can do that. But it's not a structured live lesson. And I would say this is super helpful. These are some of my Key Stage 4 and 5 lessons from a couple of weeks ago in number one, organising your day so you're not doing live lessons all day. So then you've got a bit more time to get on top of marking, because the workload for me got quite a lot with marking all the tasks and just making sure that the students know where they're at, you know where you're at, and then I'd say that was my first tip. And also in organisation, a mark book. Now again, these might be really straightforward basic things, but just having that record of home learning tasks and every task they've handed in, every hangout they've attended was so helpful, because about 6 weeks in, the school decided that we would do home learning reports, which have been really great. But if you hadn't recorded anything and then you had to all of a sudden write a report for tasks in the last couple of weeks, it was a lot of work for yourself. So I would really recommend keeping one just like this, as you can see on my screen. This is on Google Sheets, and it's a feature that I didn't know until this time. And you can just insert the tick box, and it's so easy. That green one is my tutor group attendance register for every morning. And then I've got, I think the grey one's my year 13s. So just so it's really visual on who's attended, who hasn't. And it's just really easy. You can also add comments. So we've got a communal one for all of the staff where you can see every subject and every student, and the teachers have added in comments as to whether they've done the task or if there's any issues with it. Google Classroom also does this, but I made the mistake when I wasn't very good at Google Classroom to start with. If you don't put ungraded in the grade section when you're setting the task, it gives you a score out of 100, and not every task that I want to set is out of 100. So that made marking, it made me not want to mark it because I felt I don't want to give them a mark out of 100 for it. But if you do ungraded, you can just get a tick. But quite often I just leave it to see if they're handed in or not handed in, and then you can still leave comments that the students can look at as well. And yes, I would say they're my 2 tips for organisation. And it's also
Georgina, would it be possible just to go into a new Google Sheet and just show how to insert a tick box? I didn't know you could do that. That'd be really cool to see, if that's okay, if you don't mind.
You want to ad-lib for a minute while I'm just getting it up?
No problem at all. So obviously you're using Google Hangout as opposed to Google Meet, I think it's called as well. Have you heard of Google Meet?
Yeah, we use Hangout because we've got Google email addresses with the students, so they were already all set up on that. So that's the reason we use that. And then I'll go into that in a bit more detail, but Google Hangout is the way that we tend to do it.
Fantastic. So just to be very clear, you're just going to open up a new sheet. It's not going to have any student names or anything like that on it. It's just a brand new.
It's
perfect.
Just plain. What can you see?
Perfect. At the moment, we can. Yeah. So you'll have to stop sharing your PowerPoint if that's okay, and then go to Google Sheets or open up a new sheet.
Yeah.
And then share the screen again, and then you'll be able to show us how it works.
Cool. Are we on the Google Sheet?
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
So if we go here, so I've got Joe.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to insert, and then if you just go down to tick box, and then you've got a tick box, and you can just click tick or untick. You can right click and you can go all the way down to comment. So I can say Joe missed Hangout.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've commented and then tick there. You can, once another teacher, so we've got mentors for some students. If they've then read that, they can say, oh, chatted to the child, resolved, gone, untick.
Excellent. So are you doing this, or are you sharing it with the students and they're all filling it in?
I do one for me, for my record. We've got one as a whole staff for the, just to monitor kind of which students in your tutor group are behind on work, because that was a bit of an issue for a little while, because just getting our heads around this situation, we needed to get something in play.
But in a live session, are you taking the register, or are you sharing the Google Sheet with everyone and they're filling it in themselves?
And I fill it in myself. My classes aren't massive, so I can fill it in, but you could share it if your class was bigger.
Okay, Thank you ever so much. That's great. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put the questions in the chat. I'm sure Georgina would be happy to, well, as you've just seen, to demonstrate things live if you're not clear about anything that she's said. I know on the previous slide as well, you were talking about doing live sessions and doing independent learning. What would you say is the percentage of live sessions compared to consolidation and independent learning?
I tend to do, so I see my students about 3 to 4 times a week. And at the moment I'm doing one live lesson. So with my higher students, one live lesson, one lesson that I tend to get them to book an appointment, which again, I'll talk about in a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
And we can have a one-on-one chat.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also will have 1 to 2 sessions as well, depending on what work I've set that week,
Okay.
for them to catch up on. Which does work quite well.
Brilliant. Thank you.
It's okay. Shall I carry on? Are we
Please.
all good?
Yeah. I can see that Phil has asked about the Eventbrite. I think Helen's in the room, isn't she? Helen, I don't know if it's possible to update the Eventbrite link so it's working, because it was showing a not found page, and then share that link in the chat if that's possible. That would be great, because what we did was we had to put out the Zoom link. So people could join the meeting, but if that's possible, then we can then share it. And Phil, we are recording this now, and we will put it up onto YouTube later, not necessarily straight away, but some point this week for sure. Or Phil, if you prefer, you can put the Zoom link in the chat as well.
I just think I've made a mistake there. I don't think we're going to have any horrible people coming and joining us, are we?
No problem.
And I think that the link also requires you to register. I'm ever so sorry about that. I really should have tried it out a bit more.
It's fine.
I apologise, but yes, just because this is so good, people have got to be here. Really, I'm taking loads and loads of notes. I'll shut up now because I'll go on and on. But thanks ever so much.
No problem. Brilliant. So thanks, Phil, for the question. If you could then tweet out the link to the Zoom session, and then we can get more people joining us. Sorry, Georgina, over to you.
It's okay. So when we first started the online teaching, I think a lot of us thought that we could just teach our lessons but via a computer. And we quite quickly realised that just wasn't going to work. We had students, especially the younger students. I teach primary as well. So we had the primary students and the year 7 and 8 students having 5 lessons a day where they were expected to self-motivate. Their parents in the setting that I'm in don't speak English. So we had the issue of parents not being able to help them. And they were just very overwhelmed. A few students shared their screen with us, and you could see their emails. They had dozens of emails per day that was just really overwhelming. So there was a real need for a balance to kind of work out how we could best go about this, and so they don't get overwhelmed, they don't get behind. We came up with a few suggestions, or the school did, which worked, and here's a few things that I think would be useful that I would have liked to have known 2 months ago. So I think you need to bear in mind that the students have all these tasks to complete, and they have all these tasks often to complete on a screen. So I would make sure that while I would use some of the online resources, I do try and set work that isn't on a computer as well, because I can't concentrate for 5 hours on a screen, let alone a student. So I think that's something to really bear in mind. The manageable tasks as well, especially in MFL, it's very difficult for them for the new content by themselves. And there's a reason that they have languages teachers and they don't all learn it on apps. So it was getting the manageable tasks and working out what could work for them and based on their level. I found French pronunciation was something that I really had to find a way to get across, because the stuff I was getting back was not the way I would have said it. I think you also need to ensure that there's support available. There's no harm on Google Classroom or whatever you're using. You can upload extra support sheets. You can have a link that they can contact you, that your school email address, and making sure that they know where they can come to, and also making sure the tasks are differentiated. I think a lot of us, to start with, we thought, oh, we just need to get work out. We just need to make sure there's work that they can do. And actually that structure still needed to be there, even more so when a student doesn't have that teacher support in the lesson. And then also a variety of tasks. If everything is online, if everything is written, if everything's speaking, number one, it's boring for you to mark, and it's monotonous for the child to do as well. So it's making sure there's that variety of different tasks throughout the week as well, which is something that I hadn't anticipated. I kind of thought, okay, in a lesson I'm going to have reading, writing, speaking, listening, whatever. That wasn't possible in an online situation. I had to think, okay, Tuesday we're going to focus on a speaking task. So that was useful to learn.
Fantastic, thank you.
Don't know if you want me to, shall I move on? That is the end of organisation. I don't know if anyone's got any questions before.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure we've got some questions. We haven't got any questions yet, but if you have a question that you're dying to know, please do put it in the chat.
I mean, nothing's groundbreaking. It's just stuff you might not have thought about. Have we got any questions, or shall I carry on? I can't.
No questions. I suggest you carry on if that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So next then, I'm going to talk a little bit about technology. There's so many platforms. And
sorry, we do have a question. So Richard has asked about what tools you used for speaking, if that's okay. Sorry about that.
I'm going to get to that in a little bit later if you want to hold fire on that question.
Yeah, all good.
That is coming. Don't worry.
Thank you.
So technology. There's so many platforms available. If you look on Joe's Twitter, he's got a big list of all the ones that are now free. So there's a lot of paid platforms that, because of this situation, they are now offering all their services for free, which is amazing and something that you definitely want to look at. But I'm a little bit like a kid in a candy shop and just want to use them all. And I quite quickly learned that I couldn't do that. So I thought, choose 2 to 3 platforms that really work for you and make sure they're really purposeful. Some of them are really exciting, and you've got people like different teachers coming up to you in school, because we were in school for the first couple of weeks, saying, oh, this one's so cool, you should use this one. This one's amazing, you should use this one. But actually, not all of them were appropriate for me, not all of them were appropriate for what I wanted. So that's also important to really bear in mind. And it takes a while to get your head around them. So you don't want to try 10 different ones and having all your tabs open at the top and not know, oh, year 13, I said I'd use Zoom. Year 10, I said I'd use Google Hangout. And it gets a bit overwhelming. So I would stick to 2 or 3 different things. So one for meetings, one for marking, one for uploading stuff. And be consistent with it, because it's also useful for the students. That my tutor group now know that 8:30 every day, they have their code for Google Hangout and they're on that every day. And the attendance has gone up so much now we're using the same code because it's consistent. So I would say that is really useful as well to know. It also makes it easier to monitor for marking. You don't have loads of stuff scattered everywhere and it's all in one place, which I definitely like. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the platforms that I've been using. We used Google Classroom anyway at school. So this is my Google Classroom. It's really good for setting work. It's got the markbook feature that I showed you earlier. It's possible to do differentiated tasks, so you can select the students that you assign the work for. Now, I can't show you this live because it will show you the student's name.
That's fine.
But when you set the task and it says, for example, 8-2, you can click on that and then it can say select students, and you can then click which student you want to set a task. So for example, with oral feedback for my year 13s, I recorded their feedback speaking and I wrote them notes and stuff, and I uploaded it individually so each student didn't get other people's, they only had their own. And same with, there's some groups that I only wanted some people to have the work, so I set it to them. So that's really useful for Google Classroom as well. You can upload files, you can upload working documents using Google Docs that all students can have access to, or you can make a copy for all of them. What I would do though is Google Stream, which is when they can chat in the classroom where you put the work. The students can comment. Turn your notifications off. One day I had like 300 emails and the students get those emails too. So that's even more pressure for them to get that crazy inbox that they're not used to on their school email. And it's not overly helpful. So I make sure that that's turned off because it can get a little bit irritating. But yeah, Google Classroom as well. Google G Suite, they do offer a CPD package that it's quite a lot of hours. It takes like I don't know the amount of hours, but it's really comprehensive and it's completely free. So if you type in Google Classroom or Google Education CPD or something along those lines, you can access that and it runs through everything for you. And I started it last week, and like I'm no expert, I'm definitely learning, but it's really handy to kind of see people talking it through that know what they're talking about properly. So I'd recommend that as well if you've got a little bit of downtime over the next couple of weeks.
That's awesome. We've got a great question, Georgina, if that's okay, from Luma, which is how many students would be manageable to have per class for primary and secondary from your experience?
Is that on Google Hangout or is that in Google Classroom?
I presume in Google Classroom. Maybe Luma can clarify, but I presume it means Google. I presume she means in Google Classroom.
And if you look, so I've got the maximum that we have is 24 students, and that's completely manageable because you just set it en masse, you mark it en masse. There's a button as well that you can just click return all and it marks it all automatically. You can set up as well on comments, you can set up like your own comment bank. So for example, like spelling or grammar error or whatever you want to put in, like you could be really specific with it, and then as you're marking you can just click that button and it automatically marks it with like your marking code, which really speeds up the process. So even if you had a really big class, it would still work.
That's awesome. So is that because you set up Google Forms? Is that what you mean? That it's then marking automatically? No, not the same thing.
No, it's on Google Classroom, and it's when, again, I can't show you because it will.
No, of course, I understand. But if people went onto YouTube and did a search, or they looked for Google Classroom and comment banks, they'd find.
Absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, it's really good because you can put in. So you can either select the text that the student's written and say write comment and then comment what they've written. And with spelling as well, you just click on it and it automatically knows what the spelling should be. Like even in a foreign language, it knows which one it's meant to, like what the spelling is, like autocorrect. So you can just click on it and then it looks like you've marked it, which saves a lot of time compared to handwriting.
Brilliant.
And so that's really useful, and the comment bank is really good as well.
That's excellent. I can see Luma has clarified that she'd like to know as well with the online sessions with the Google Hangouts that you do. You said you have 24 students, is that right, per class on average? Is there any difficulties of people being kicked out or not being able to get access, or do you find that managing the 24 at the same time it works okay?
I find it works okay. I have got into a bit of a routine now. The first couple of sessions were a bit difficult. I know there's been a few issues with other students the students can kick other students out, which can get, I think that's when it can get a bit tricky. So as long as we had a code of conduct that we shared with all the students that was quite strict, and it's worked, but I know that could be a possibility that you could get students kicking other students out, or they can mute each other, or they can type stuff. So if you have a massive class, that might be more difficult to monitor.
I mentioned that last week, I think, in my webinar, that that was being an issue for teachers, that students, my understanding was students could actually mute the teacher or chuck the teacher out. But then Google responded very quickly to that, made it so it wasn't possible for students to do that, which is obviously great, because essentially Google Hangouts, it's not designed to be an educational tool per se, but clearly in the current situation, that's what lots of people, particularly if they're in a Google environment, are using. But it's good that Google have responded in that way, and it'd be lovely if they introduced some more educational features as well moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree, definitely. Let me just check the time. Okay, yeah. So that's Google Classroom, but again, there's loads of stuff online to access training on that, and loads of videos of people that know a lot about it. Google Hangout, again, I thought you could look into that in your own time, into actually the intricacies of it, but I use it for sharing my screen for lessons, so very much like this. And this feels a bit like a lesson that I do at the moment as well. It's quite similar. And you can share Kahoots through it. So we do, again, in tutor time, we do Kahoots where the students have their phones and they answer it through Google Hangout, which is really good. And I've not used it for MFL, but you absolutely could. It's really good. We put up photos and describe photos, or put games up. I think I'll show you in a couple of slides time. I did like a snakes and ladders game and things like that, which you can have on the screen just like you would on the board. I've seen people put links to textbooks and stuff on there, or you can link your visualizer up to it or be writing. I've got Active Inspire with my smartboard, and I can link up Google Hangout with Active Inspire and like write as if it was a whiteboard, which is useful as well. I know maths use that a lot. It's a bit easier to put numbers in than it is to write stuff out, but that's really good for that as well. I've mainly been using, with my higher students, I've been using Google Hangout for conversation classes, and it's been amazing because it's been time that I can chat to the students in groups or one-on-one in a way that in a classroom setting I probably wouldn't dedicate as much time to, which I'd say has been a real positive of this whole experience. And yeah, it's been really good. And it's also how I think we're going to be recording our exams, so it's good to get used to it.
So if the students are doing the Kahoots, are they using a secondary device? In other words, are they watching you on their laptops and then using their phones to do the Kahoot, or can they do it both on the same device?
I think they can just do it on separate tabs, and they have to make sure that they mute the Kahoot tab. So if you right click on the bit at the top on a tab and it says mute tab, you can do it like that, and then you don't get that Kahoot song that I'm sure you all know.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, so this bit of technology I actually had no idea about until a couple of weeks ago, and it is, it's called Calendly, and it links up to your calendar, but it also links up to Google Hangout. It's like a middleman between both of them. So I send out this link here, the Year 13 French 1-on-1, for example. I'd copy and paste that link into Google Hangout, and the students click on it, pick a time that suits them out of the times that I've said I'm available, and then just before we'll both get an email with the link for Google Hangout, or it'll come up in our calendars. And as you can see here, I'll just go in my calendar, student and Georgina, click Google, join Hangouts, and I'm there. I don't need to have a different code. It's just ready and it comes up on your calendar. And it's really good for scheduling one-on-one sessions, or you can do group sessions. And it's a really good tool for organising as well, which I had no idea about.
Fantastic. I've heard of it, but I've never seen it being used in practice before. That's great. Thank you.
It's great. And another piece of technology that's great is Screencastify, which I think is my favourite one at the moment. And I've put a little code here as well that they've released to get free unlimited recording. So normally it's a 5-minute limit, but now you can get unlimited, which means you could record a whole lesson if you wanted to. But I don't, but you could. So the code's there if you want it. It's really good for loads of different things, Screencastify, and I'll explain it and then I'll give you a little tutorial. It's good for pre-recorded sections of lessons. So as you can see to the right, here's one of my Year 5 lessons where I've explained it to them of what I want them to do, and then I've given the slides as well for them to see. So that's really good. You can have it as an embedded link like that, or you can have it as a QR code where they can scan. So for the older students, QR codes are fine, but my Year 5s probably could actually, but I've embedded it for them. It's really good for pronunciation. So for just reading through a text, if I've put a reading comprehension or something like that, I tend to record myself reading it just so they can hear it, because so long without being in a classroom with a French speaker or a Spanish speaker, it's difficult for them to then, well, they're just not hearing it. So it's good for them to hear someone speaking it, which this is really useful for. Instructions, I've done it for a few oral exams. So I'll say the question, give them 30 seconds to a minute to answer, and then I'll say the next question. And that's been really good as well. So you leave gaps, so send 10 minutes to the student, and then they record it on their phone and they send it back to me via Google Classroom. It's also good for walking, talking mocks. So I've done that quite a lot recently as well, with just going through a paper and putting little QR codes in the corner, with students have the option of like, no, I've got this, I don't need you to tell us, Miss Dorr, like, we don't need that. Or they can scan the QR code and just get reassured that they know what they're doing, or if they're not sure, it's a bit of extra support. And so, yeah, that is Screencastify. And Joe, would you like me to share it?
Please, I would love you to. I think that will give people a real good sense of exactly how it works. Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to screencastify my Google Sheets, which is interesting for everybody. So there you go. Is this shared, Joe?
Yep. So we can see your Google Sheet now. And then if you, lovely.
Cool. So I've got, I'll do it. Can you still see my Google Sheet?
We can see the tab, but we can now see the Google Slides version of your Google presentation. So I think that would be the best one to, useful. Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Cool. So I'm in Google Slides, and then up here you have to insert it as a Google Chrome add-on. But again, it's free, and even that, the paid version is now free as well. So you just click on it. Oh, hang on, while I'm here, this one here is Google Classroom, so that will that sends stuff to my Google Classroom. So that's also useful as well. I forgot to mention that earlier. So if I click on Google, on Screencastify, doesn't appear to be working. Oh, there you go. Let's go back onto this one. So this is Screencastify. You've got the option of where you want to record, whether you want the browser, the desktop, or just the webcam. So when I've recorded a film of just me, I use webcam. If I want to record my screen and my voice speaking over it, then I'll do desktop, because they don't always need to see my face when I'm chatting away. So here it's really easy. It takes you to recordings there, which they save, and you can label them and keep them. It also goes straight onto your Google Drive. So anything that you record is automatically saved on your Google Drive, which number one makes it so easy to upload, and it means that you've got a copy of it as well. You can also then export it to YouTube, or you can have it as a QR code. And then all you do here is you just click record, and it just comes up with like a 3, 2, 1, and then it says record. And then you just press stop. And it's really good. You can run through. So if I was doing this, I could be running through my slides saying, hi, I'm Georgina Dorr, and chatting away with it while I'm moving it and while I'm doing stuff on the screen. So it is really, really, really good. It's really good quality as well. And
the fact that it saves straight to, sorry, could you just go back to Google Slides a second? Yeah. The fact that it saves directly to Drive means that if you wanted to, you could actually take your video that's in Google Drive that you've made using Screencastify and actually insert it straight into your presentation, couldn't you? So if you click on Insert for me, and you'll also see it says video. If you click on video, you'll see it says Google Drive. So I'm going to obviously that could have student word there, but yeah, if you were to click on Drive, that video, you would then go to the folder which is automatically created called Screencastify, if I remember correctly. You go to Screencastify, you click on the video, and then you can put that within your Google Slides presentation. So in other words, if you wanted to do some sort of, as you say, voiceover or whatever it is that you're doing, you could take that video and then put that within your within your Google Slides presentation. So it's a nice way of doing a flipped learning model as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And I would say flipped learning as well is something that comes in so well with this whole teaching online process. And it's also great because everything that you're recording, you can use in the future. You might even look a few years younger, but it'll be great to reuse as cover or for homework or for flipped learning. So everything that I'm making, I'm saving to be like, I could use this in a few years' time if I need to. So
awesome.
Useful for that as well. Where am I? Okay, so that's all of the technology I'm going to talk about. I'm now going to talk about some of the tasks that we've done, because I've had quite a lot of people asking me about what individual tasks we've set over the last couple of weeks. So I've split it into primary, Key Stage 3, and then Key Stage 4 and 5. So primary, we did the same work with Key Stage 3 as we did with primary, but it was slightly different with the level. But we did a fashion show, and this was the best thing to watch because all the students recorded themselves or Lego or drawings or their family, or some of them even did their pets, wearing different clothes, and they got to film them. We had them be in the commentator, they could be the model. They did it in 3 tenses, saying this is last year's piece, next year's piece. We had describing what other people were wearing. So you can get everything that you need to get in, but in a bit of a more creative environment that I would love to do normally, but it's not as feasible in a classroom situation. So I've tried to think of projects that you can do that you want to do, but it's just difficult in a classroom. So the fashion show was great. The students really liked that. So I did that from year 5 all the way up to year 9 and got some really great stuff from them. And they also really like editing videos. It's quite fun. Some of them did blogs. And one of them was an incredible blog that could be a blog. So it was cool to see them do that as well and get them to be creative. And we also did for primary crepes, which was amazing. And me and my department, we made the crepes in the school kitchen when we had a few weeks in school. And we filmed it step by step, and then the students had to make their own, and they sent them back in and with their pictures of them eating, serving them to their family, learning it. There was, in the slides, we had quite a lot on French culture, and it was just really lovely, and again, something that you wouldn't do in class. And we've also done loads of songs with students where they've got a video, but then you've also got me singing the song or going around the house and picking things that they can count. We're doing numbers with year 2. So lots of different things that you can do, just thinking outside the box a little bit. And obviously bearing in mind for like safeguarding things as well with videos, but there's quite a lot of stuff that you can definitely do with photos as well.
So just to clarify on that point, you're giving them the task to do, but then they're then showing how to make pancakes in their own houses. Is that right?
Yeah. So we showed them how to do it, and then they made them. Some of them filmed themselves making it, or some of them just followed our instructions making them.
Okay. So do you have a safeguarding policy around video work, or is there an issue around showing where children live, for example, when everyone can then see where everyone else lives?
I think it depends school to school. The students don't send work that all the students can see. So if they send a video in of their house, it's just me that sees it and just the teacher. It doesn't go to everybody.
Okay, so how would they submit that work? Would they submit it via Classroom? So you get to see it? Gotcha, right, okay. I think that's incredibly important. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, okay. That's great. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah,
I do think that is something to bear in mind. I think I'm in an international school, and I think it's slightly different the way that it works to a British school with GDPR and everything like that. I think it's just worth checking with your school what their policy is.
And just on that point as well, in the Google Hangout, do the children have their videos turned on for the same reason?
I tend to have them off, but we don't have a policy that they can't be off. But okay. I think some schools do. Okay,
thank you.
For speaking,
I'm sure lots of people are having those sorts of questions. That's why it's important to clarify that, I think. Thank you. Sorry, Georgina, over to you.
Yeah, my advice for that is to check with your school policy. So Key Stage 3, this is where we've had lots of creative tasks. Over the course of the couple of months, we've done a review of French YouTubers. So I gave them a list of 10 YouTubers, and they had to watch them. They categorised into, one was to do with science, one was fashion, and they had to watch them and pick their favourite one. Then write up a little review. They could do it in French or English, and this girl did it in a little bit, a mix of both. But what I really wanted them to do was just to listen to French and to immerse themselves in it. Again, it's not something they would do in class as much, and they got to really go into their own hobbies. So if they're into rock music, they could watch rock music YouTubers and bloggers. If they're more into the fashion, they could pick that. So it was a real catered to what they wanted to do. But then they got to write it up at the end, which was really lovely. And that could definitely be a homework in a normal situation as well. I got them to design a video about themselves. This is a really lovely video here where they, this student did, as you can see, it's 6 minutes long, and she's just chatting in French about herself. And she's drawn the little drawings, and she's filmed herself on a whiteboard, like drawing it and then wiping it off. So again, being creative, but speaking French, and it is, I wish I could show you that one because it's great. I've also gotten to make infographics there's a website called Canva, which is I think what this is made on, this poster, and it's free, and the students really love it, and they can play around with it, and they can really make it their own, which has been really good. You can get, I don't know if you saw in my Google Classroom, I've got the little headers, they were made on that, and there's a lot of stuff that you can make on that website that the the students really enjoy. And again, it's not something that I would give curriculum time to in class, but in this situation where it's a little bit more relaxed, you definitely can. Is that okay for Key Stage 3, Joe?
Yeah, that's lovely. What I was thinking was with the artwork, the video that you've got there, that's really lovely what your student has done there. If you wanted to replicate the same idea, you could obviously just literally have an iPad camera or the camera on a device propped up, pointing downwards, maybe put onto a chair, and then you draw the picture underneath. Or if you were looking for a purely text solution, you could use Seesaw, so that's SEESAW, and it has a drawing feature that works on all devices, so laptops, Android and iOS devices. So you could then get the students to draw pictures, and then there's also the option to download the video as an offline video, which means you could, similar to what we looked at with Screencastify, you could upload the video that you downloaded from Seesaw into Google Drive, and then from there insert it into your Google Slides presentation. Or, I mean, I don't know if that's on YouTube, but you can also insert a YouTube clip in the same way. So instead of having the Google Drive option, you've got the YouTube URL option. That's another way of inserting it. But if you were looking for a BYOD solution to drawing like a screencast made up of a number of different slides, then Seesaw would be a really nice option, which I've used many times when I've been doing training sessions. So there we are. But yeah, lovely slide. Thank you. Lovely ideas.
And it was great. I kind of, for this particular class, it's my top set year 9. I just said, give me a video about yourselves. This is the criteria, but you can do it as you want. And the stuff that we got back was really lovely. So that was good. For Key Stage 4 and 5, it's been a bit more exam orientated. Walking, talking mocks, oral practice, writing practice. As you can see, this is one of the games I was talking about with speaking. So we had a dice on a separate screen that was rolled, and they had to play the game but answering the questions, which makes it a little bit more interesting. They can all read it at the same time. We don't need to be, it's not like a PowerPoint, it's just all there. So that was really good. They can also take that off as well, and that was uploaded onto Google Classroom, and they can do it in their own time as a bit of extra practice. There's QR codes on these slides, which is me. The one that says your turn is me giving an example of me describing that photo. And the one down here is me running through, this is from the IGCSE. And this is one of the questions in the writing. And this is just me running through, what does it mean? How would you answer it? Just as you would in class, just chatting through it, just as a bit of extra support for the students before they went off and wrote it themselves. And so that's the sort of thing we've been doing Key Stage 4 and 5. They've definitely got the tools to be more independent and more motivated. So that is the difference. We haven't had to make it as engaging, as fun, as we have the younger years. But it's still been really interesting.
Lovely.
I think that's the end of the task little section. I thought I'd just touch on wellbeing a little bit, which I'm sure you've seen everywhere and people are talking about a lot at the moment, especially in the UK. But I think it's important to make sure you really do look after your own well-being. It's really easy to wake up and you've got your laptop there, so just start working when actually it's an hour and a half before you would have done at school. And then at the end of the day, it's very easy to just carry on going and not stop. And that just, I definitely need to do it, and making sure that you stop at the right times. I've got a colleague that really struggled with time management in the days as a teacher. So he set up alarms for 5 minutes before the end of each lesson to know, okay, you finished with the year 7 work now, you now need to work on year 9, to kind of monitor how he was doing. I don't know, it depends on how strict your school is being with following the timetable or not. But that is a good way to kind of monitor how you're spending your day. The balance, I spoke about this earlier, varying tasks. You don't want to be marking loads of writing steps, it mix it up a little bit. Marking the videos is really fun because you can just watch them all and type comments. Exercise, there's a yoga channel here that's really good, and she does 20-minute sessions. I've been using those. I thought that's a really nice thing to do in your lunch break or your break time, in the comfort of your own home, and that's really nice. Emails, make sure you've turned off the Google Stream because it gets a lot. Um, don't do that. Tutor time is one of my favourite times of the day, when I just chat with my year 7 tutor group, and just we sometimes play games or just talk, see how they're getting on. And that's really nice, part of routine for them, but also for the teacher as well, just to get that bit of interaction. Being in your apartment all day, every day, you don't get that chat as much, because some days you might not have any live lessons. So you need kind of that interaction. And for your well-being, don't reinvent the wheel, especially, so the last 8 weeks, we didn't have the resources available because we were one of the first schools, Vietnam and China, to shut down. And it just wasn't available. And slowly, as the rest of the world is starting to go on lockdown, it means that a lot more of resources are available. So there's loads of Facebook groups. I can tweet a link, I have done before, to it's called Global Educators Online, something along those lines, on Facebook. It's incredible. People post stuff all the time of platforms you can use, of examples that they've been doing, of things that they've been successful with, and that's so useful. Same with Twitter, but I would say Facebook is where I've been getting a lot of ideas from, because it's uncharted territory for a lot of people. So it's nice to feel part of a community as well with it. So yeah, I thought I'd just share a few takeaways just based on what I've been talking about. So I feel like I've been chatting for a really long time, but organisation, I say the timetable and the mark book are my go-tos. Technology, don't overload yourself, just pick 2 or 3. Tasks, make sure they're creative, they're varied, think about how you're getting on with it, but also how the students are finding them, and think about screen time and things like that. And then well-being, catch up with tutor times and make use of the free online platforms. And that is my little insight to online teaching, which I'm by no means an expert, but I have learned a lot in the last couple of months, and I think you guys will too.
That's been absolutely incredible. I'm sure I'll just unmute everyone's audio so everyone can give Georgina a fantastic round of applause. But I thought that was absolutely fantastic. So let's just do unmute all. There we are. So let's have a lovely round of applause. Awesome. I will now mute everyone again, if that's okay. Hang on. Let's make sure that Georgina is not unmuted. Is not muted. There we are. Right. Any other questions in the chat? I'm sure you can see the chat yourself, Georgina. So
yeah,
I'm
just getting up. I didn't have it up.
Yeah, but if you have any other questions, we've still got a few minutes. If Georgina's happy to answer any other questions, feel free to put them in now. If you have a burning question for Georgina, that would be great. But I thought that was really, really useful, and it had a nice balance between the tech and the tasks as well. And I love the well-being slide at the end. It was superb. And I think when we actually see you showing things live, like the Screencastify, or adding a tick in the Google Sheets, it's just really helpful, because it's otherwise. I think it can be quite easy to lose focus. I think actually seeing it live is incredibly powerful, and Zoom lends itself so well to that. So even though it's not an ideal situation at the moment, at least we can learn lots from each other in those sorts of very practical ways. And that whole connecting with your tutor once a day as well, I thought that your tutor group, I thought that was a really lovely thing to say as well. I just think if there are any other questions. Lovely. Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, I'll just wait. We'll just wait another minute or so. If you have any other questions.
Yeah, any questions?
That'd be
I'm
great.
glad it's been helpful.
Oh, I must say as well, I literally asked Georgina yesterday, I think it was, wasn't it?
So, it was midnight my time, Joe.
There we are. So Georgina has put this presentation together today, and she's done an absolutely fantastic job. So thank you ever so much for doing that. And yeah, we're very grateful.
Thank you, Joe.
That's okay. Thanks. I think that's all the questions. Okay. No, hang on.
Yes, I do. Okay. Natasha. Yeah, we use Google Hangout in the mornings, and we use the same code, but with primary, they use a different code each day for safeguarding reasons. Just in case anyone has access to that code, I think. So that might be something to bear in mind as well.
Awesome. Okay, I think if everyone's happy then and no more questions, we'll say our goodbyes. But thanks ever so much, and don't forget we've got another Tilt event, Tilt Thursday on Thursday, believe it or not, and we will announce the who's going to be leading that. I've already put up some tentative feelers already, but we haven't got anything confirmed yet, so I wouldn't want to say who I think it's going to be. But anyway, that will be all revealed on social media later on in the week. But thanks ever so much again, finally, to Georgina for sharing her practical tips, which I'm sure everyone's going to find very useful. I'm going to stop the recording now. I will then save it, obviously, and then I'll then upload it onto YouTube in the next couple of days, and then put the link out on social media.
Can I just say thanks ever so much, Joe, to you as well. You're a natural at this. It's like watching a show, isn't it, with a TV host? And so thank you ever so much as well for doing this. Great.
No problem at all. It's my pleasure. And I think what I'm trying to do is not only field the questions from the audience, but also give some tips as well that I know about to suggest that people could also use as a way of helping them as well. So it's all about everyone working together and helping each other, and that's what it's all about, isn't it, really? So thanks ever so much, everyone, for coming along. Enjoy the rest of your day, and see you on Thursday if you're up for another Tilt Thursday webinar. Take care.
Thank you, Joe.